Okay, so I'm gonna share a pretty ridiculous workflow um, that I came up with because I wanted to use these 3D buildings and this like 3D model that Google has, and it was like really kind of amazing and like incredibly high fidelity um, in these buildings combined with the texture mapping. I mean, it's like next level, but of course it's proprietary, so I can't like just download it. But this workflow, as crazy as it is, will actually let you do it, I think. Um, and to a relatively good, nice degree of accuracy, and at least something that you can bring into Rhino and start to manipulate and just sort of like at least use as context. And it's very similar to, honestly, it uses the same process as just like normal photogrammetry. So you're going to get a very similar model to something that you would get just like flying your drone around here and doing like an aerial photogrammetry run. And this is like super quick and dirty. So first things first, you're going to want to install Adobe Premiere, and I'm going to use reality capture. This is like probably one of the better, well, okay, I won't say that. This is a very good photogrammetry software. They just merged with Epic, and something that, so you do have to pay, you have to pay a little bit for your models, but honestly, it's like a couple bucks and you get very good models, obviously depending on resolution. But in my opinion, this is totally worth it. And the reason that I like it is that you can take a video sequence and you can basically input your video sequence, and it'll take frames of your video sequence and use those to, as the base of your photogrammetry. So first things first, I'm just going to come to Google Earth, and then I'm going to press Start and G. That's going to bring up your like gaming. I don't know actually if you could see this. I'm recording this on Zoom. Well, whatever. If you can't, that's fine. But it's going to bring up this gaming interface, and all you're going to do is just press this in this capture box. You're going to press record, and that's going to start recording your screen. So I'm like double recording right now, which may or may not be very good. And all I'm going to do, and this is totally crazy, is just rotate around the building of interest and like the area of interest, not too fast, just kind of at like a normal like helicopter level. So I basically just orbited the building of interest and screen recorded it in Google Earth Pro with terrain and 3D buildings on. Obviously, this is only going to work in like probably more dense urban areas, but chances are those are the places you're going to want to do this anyway. So I basically just orbited the building of interest and screen recorded it in Google Earth Pro with terrain and 3D buildings on. Obviously, this is only going to work in like probably more dense urban areas, but chances are those are the places you're going to want to do this anyway. So now I'm going to open up Premiere. I'm just going to import this capture. So this will save in your captures folder. This is the one that I most recently took. So that has imported, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into my timeline. And really all I want to do here, and this is like incredibly simple, is just crop. I'm just going to do a little zooming and scaling of my image. All I really want to do is crop out. Oh, it was too much. I don't know why it goes so crazy like this. Okay, that's good. And then just move it over a little bit, over, a little more, a little more. Maybe zoom in a little bit, but over the other way. Zoom in a little bit. Basically just trying to get this lined up so that we're not seeing the like bars on either side. So now when I scrub through this, I'm basically just seeing me orbiting the building of interest, right? And then zooming in and orbiting there. Okay. So I'm gonna right click, export media. I'm just gonna save this to my desktop and then export that. And that'll just render out that sort of cropped video. So once that's done, I'm gonna open up reality capture. And first things first is, so I'm no expert in photogrammetry. I've done a little bit, but like not seriously. So look at other tutorials for how to use reality capture. I'm just going to show you how to use it here. Gonna load or import video sequence in the sort of like first tab. So this is very much like a sort of Grasshopper workflow where you kind of start from Grasshopper and reading, start from left and work right. So click on import video sequence. I'm gonna go to my desktop and import this video. And this dialog box is basically gonna ask you how frequently you would like reality capture to take a frame from your video. So our video wasn't super long, it was like 1:30, right? So I'm just gonna do every half second. And that should be totally fine. And so just press OK, and then that'll basically work through. It'll give you a nice progress bar, and it'll give you a nice bar at the bottom, and it'll give you an estimated time, which is excellent. So I'll come back when this is done and show you where to go from here. Okay, so I have completed the frame import, and actually I did this twice and lowered the interval from 0.5 to 0.2 seconds, which gave me 500 images. And the reason I did that is when I went through this sort of second sequence of aligning the images, I realized that there wasn't enough continuity between the images to sort of form a cohesive point cloud. But very simply, what I'm going to do now is I have all these images, and I'm just going to go and in this step 2 process up at the top, I'm just going to press start. And what that is going to do is run through aligning the images. It's going to calculate the model, and then it's going to texture the images with the texture map that's associated with all of the images that we took. So it's basically going to take the images, make a point cloud, make a mesh, and then make a texture map for that point cloud and that mesh, and apply it to that mesh that we created. So it's going to take a little while. This says for me, it's going to take about 15 minutes. And I'm running 16 cores, and I think it's going to be probably using all of them, almost 100%. Yeah. So this may take quite a while for you. The more images you use, the longer this is going to take, especially if you just if you press start and you are if you're calculating your model, you're also colorizing and texturizing. That's going to add quite a bit of time. Something you can do that will cut down on time is just calculate the model, just calculate the mesh. And that will give you the mesh without the texture and the texture mapping on top. Okay, so our model has finished, and we're left with this pretty awesome, I mean, like, this is not the highest fidelity just because we did quite a high level scan of this area. Obviously, if we wanted something more, a higher fidelity, we would have focused in a little more. I've tried this on other buildings using the same method, just like focusing specifically on one building, not a larger area. The fidelity does get a lot better. And we did a little closer look in here, and I would say this stuff actually looks a little better than some of this other stuff. But so you can kind of see that, as we get further away, the mesh kind of dissolves into nothingness. So what we're going to do really quickly is use this box just out here, and you can basically just grab the corners. Basically what we want to do is just trim up this, find an area that we want to trim that will just give us more of a focused area. This looks pretty good to me. I'm not going to be too careful about this. And what I'm going to do is I'm in the reconstruction tab here, and I'm going to choose the box setting. And that'll open a dialog box down here that says box selection tool. And so I can select the triangles inside the box, or I can select the triangles outside the box. Actually, I'm going to deselect, the inside. So I'm only going to select the outside. And then up here in tools, I'm just going to say filter selection. And so that's going to just open up this filtering dialog, and that's going to happen pretty quickly in a matter of seconds. And so we're going to be left with this model that's a little bit cleaned up. We're going to have some edges here and stuff like that. This is a sort of new filled in construction. And basically from here, all I'm going to do is go to this export tab, and I'm going to click on model. And I'm going to save this to my desktop. I'll just leave it as the default naming. Yep, that's on my desktop. I'm just going to press save. So this is going to come up with this dialog box. It's going to get a license from you. It's going to ask you a little bit about how, the format of your saved model. I'm just going to leave this as the default. For some of these models, depending on the size, it'll ask you to give it some credits that you purchase on the Reality Capture website. For a model like this, I've paid maybe $2 or $3. So it's really not a significant amount of money for the for the capability, in my opinion. So now we've exported our model from Reality Capture. I'm going to open Rhino, navigate to File and Import, and I'm going to import that OBJ, which I saved on my desktop, into Rhino. I'm going to be presented with this dialog box. The two things that I want to check are set display color from OBJ material color, so that'll bring in your texture, as well as map OBJY to Rhino Z. Okay, so once we've imported, that took maybe a couple of minutes just because it's a pretty heavy mesh. If I select this, you can see, and zoom in, you can see how dense this mesh is. But this is pretty amazing. So we've got this three-dimensional mesh. You can see it in plan. We've gotten a pretty good texture mapping of sort of like roof materials, all that kind of thing. And maybe if I go into a dematerialized view, maybe Arctic, you can see that, this is a pretty decent representation of the area we were looking at. It's not perfect, obviously. There's a lot to be desired. There's a lot of fidelity that's missing, but we are getting groups of trees. We are seeing relative heights, which is something that we're not really getting from OpenStreetMaps or anything like that. I'm sure there are other ways, probably purchasable data sets, that will give you this height data. But in terms of getting relatively high fidelity, context models just from Google Earth, this is a pretty incredible way to do it, honestly. So yeah, I hope this helps, and I hope you can make use of this. I think this is pretty amazing. I mean, I think it's pretty amazing I mean, these models are just totally crazy looking. So it's something that I really enjoy, just like looking around and exploring and making. So definitely try this out on like closer up subjects in you know, from Google Earth, because you can't see it here, but I have definitely been able to, and it's not, can't quite see any here, but I've definitely been able to capture some pretty fine differentiation in like even windows and like depths of windows and stuff in these models. So I mean, I definitely think there's a possibility of sort of pushing the limits of this to something that is actually pretty high fidelity. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy, and I hope this helps.